Stop everything right now and listen with complete attention, because what I'm about to reveal in the next 25 minutes will shatter every lie you've been told about why you've felt so devastatingly exhausted lately. Exactly 72 hours ago, something happened in the shadow dimensions that left the Council of Shadow Guardians in absolute silence. This wasn't a minor event. This was the moment they witnessed a dark chosen one, complete shadow integration so devastating it broke 6,000 years of spiritual lore. And when they reviewed the complete records of how it happened, when they witnessed the surgical precision with which this chosen one integrated 1,000 shadow fragments simultaneously without psychological collapse, their reaction wasn't admiration. It was existential recognition, because they had just witnessed something that only happens once every 1,500 years. A human consciousness integrating darkness without corruption. Not defeating darkness, not transcending it. Not bypassing it with love and light, but integrating it as conscious power. That human being is you. And the reason you didn't notice is the part that changes everything. There's a brutal difference between consciously fighting against your shadow and integrating 1,000 shadow fragments while living your daily life without recognizing you're in the midst of the most profound transformation a soul can undergo. And that difference is exactly what makes you dangerous to systems that depend on keeping people fragmented. Subscribe to this channel immediately and activate all notifications, because what I'm about to reveal about how you completed shadow integration that 97% of chosen ones fail is being systematically suppressed so that dark chosen ones like you never discover the impossible level of wholeness you've already achieved. Stay until the very last second, because I'm going to show you exactly which 1,000 shadow fragments you integrated. Why your completion was so devastating. It activated protections even angels don't have. How your current exhaustion is physical proof of the integration you completed, and why this capacity places you in a category so rare that only 144 living souls on the entire planet possess it. Write 777 in the comments if you felt deep exhaustion 72 hours ago without apparent reason, as if your entire being was being restructured at the cellular level, and you're ready to discover why that exhaustion is evidence of a completion you didn't even know you'd achieved. We go back to 72 hours ago. Specific moment, 3 days ago from right now. You probably remember it as an ordinary day. You woke up. You fulfilled your responsibilities. You interacted with people. You handled situations. You eventually went to sleep feeling that strange tiredness that's been constantly accompanying you lately. Nothing dramatic happened. You didn't face a visible crisis. You didn't fight an obvious battle. You didn't have a mystical experience. It was a common day where you simply existed, or so you thought. But in dimensions you don't perceive with physical senses, that day was a literal threshold. The final moment where your consciousness completed a process that began years ago. The culmination of every dark night, every brutal loss, every moment where life shattered you and forced you to pick up the pieces. 72 hours ago, you integrated the final shadow fragments. I'm not using poetic language. I'm not exaggerating to create drama. I'm describing a real psychological and spiritual completion that the Council of Shadow Guardians, the archetypal forces that govern shadow integration for humanity, documented in records that exist beyond physical reality. 1,000 shadow fragments, exact number. Each representing a split-off part of yourself you rejected, denied, or buried because accepting them felt too dangerous, too shameful, too threatening to your survival. And 72 hours ago, without conscious ceremony, without formal ritual, Without even knowing what was happening, you integrated them all. Every rejected part, every denied impulse, every buried truth. Every shadow aspect you spent decades avoiding. You brought them home, you made yourself whole. And the Council of Shadow Guardians, beings who have witnessed this process for millennia, marked your consciousness with recognition reserved for those who complete what most cannot even begin. How do I know this with such certainty? Because the tiredness you felt that night, that deep exhaustion that didn't correspond with the day's physical effort, that weight that made your body ask for rest beyond normal, that feeling as if your entire nervous system was being rewired, wasn't common tiredness. It was physical evidence of the shadow integration you just completed. Let me show you exactly what those 1,000 shadow fragments were. Because when you understand the specificity of this process, when you see the surgical precision with which your consciousness operated, you're going to understand why only 144 living souls on Earth right now have completed this. But first, you need to understand what shadow integration actually is. Because most people, including most spiritual teachers, get this catastrophically wrong. Shadow integration is not defeating your darkness. You can't defeat part of yourself. Transcending your shadow, spiritual bypassing, making your darkness go away, impossible and unhealthy, becoming pure light, denial of human wholeness, healing your wounds so they disappear, they become wisdom, not erasure. Shadow integration is recognizing every rejected part of yourself without judgment, accepting that you contain both light and darkness, wielding shadow power consciously instead of unconsciously, becoming whole, not healed, holding paradox without collapsing into either-or thinking. Carl Jung spent 80 years studying this. He theorized it was possible. He admitted in his private journals that he never fully completed it himself. You did, 72 hours ago, without even knowing what you accomplished. For those who want to go deeper, there's exclusive material in the description and pinned comment. Let me show you exactly which shadow fragments you integrated. Not all 1,000. That would take hours. But the major categories. The ones that 97% of people spend their entire lives avoiding. The first 100 were the rejected rage. Every moment in your life where you were mistreated, violated, disrespected, betrayed, and you swallowed your anger because expressing it felt too dangerous. Every time someone hurt you and you smiled through it. Every injustice you endured in silence, that rage didn't disappear. It went into your shadow. It lived there, festering, leaking out in passive aggression, self-sabotage, mysterious illnesses. 72 hours ago, you integrated it. You didn't explode in destructive fury. You didn't become a rage monster. You recognized, this rage is mine. It was justified. I have the right to feel it. And now I can wield it consciously when protection is necessary instead of letting it control me unconsciously. 100 fragments of rejected rage, integrated. Your righteous anger became conscious power. The next 150 were the denied selfishness. Every time you wanted to say no but said yes. Every time you prioritized others at your own expense. Every time you gave until you were empty because being selfish felt like the worst thing you could be. But selfishness isn't evil. Healthy selfishness is self-preservation. It's recognizing your needs matter as much as anyone else's. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, I have the right to prioritize myself. I can be generous and boundaried. Saying no to others is saying yes to myself. This isn't cruelty. It's wisdom. 150 fragments of denied selfishness, integrated. Your self-preservation became conscious choice. The next 200 were the buried cruelty. Every dark thought you ever had, every moment you wanted to hurt someone who hurt you, every impulse toward revenge, toward destruction, toward making them feel what you felt. You buried those impulses deep because having them made you feel like a monster. Good people don't think these things, you told yourself, so you shoved them down. But that cruelty didn't vanish. It lived in your shadow. It manifested as self-directed cruelty, the voice that attacks you for every mistake, that tells you you're never enough. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, I have the capacity for cruelty. That doesn't make me cruel, it makes me human. And now I can use that capacity consciously to cut toxic bonds without guilt, to establish lethal boundaries when necessary, to protect fiercely without apologizing. 200 fragments of buried cruelty integrated. Your capacity to destroy became conscious protection. The next 150 were the hidden selfishness around power. Every time you wanted recognition but pretended you didn't care. Every moment you wanted to be seen as special, unique, powerful, but denied it because wanting power felt shameful. We're taught that desiring power is egotistical, that humble people don't seek recognition, that wanting to be exceptional is narcissistic. But the desire for power isn't inherently corrupt, it's human. And when denied, it becomes corrupt. It leaks out as manipulation, as covert grandiosity, as playing small while secretly resenting those who play big. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, I want power, I want recognition. I want to be exceptional, and that's not shameful. That's honest. Now I can pursue power consciously, ethically, without the corruption that comes from denying I want it. 150 fragments of hidden power desire integrated. Your ambition became conscious mission. The next 100 were the rejected weakness. Every moment you felt afraid, vulnerable, fragile, and hated yourself for it. Every time you cried and felt pathetic. Every instance of needing help and feeling ashamed. You learned early that weakness gets exploited, that vulnerability gets punished, that showing fear invites attack. So you armored up. You rejected your softness. But that rejected weakness didn't disappear. It lived in your shadow. It manifested as overcompensation, being so strong you never rest, so independent you can't receive, so invulnerable you can't connect. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, I have weakness. I am vulnerable. I need help sometimes, and that's not shameful. That's human. Integrating my weakness makes me stronger because I'm no longer controlled by fear of appearing weak. 100 fragments of rejected weakness integrated. Your vulnerability became conscious strength. The next 150 were the denied sexuality and primal power. Every sexual thought you judged as dirty. Every primal impulse you labeled as animalistic. Every moment of raw desire you buried because it felt too intense, too dangerous, too uncivilized. Sexuality and primal power are sacred. They're life force. But you were taught to fear them, control them, transcend them. So you shoved them into shadow. And there they festered, becoming shame, becoming addiction, becoming either repression or compulsion. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, my sexuality is sacred. My primal power is divine. I don't need to transcend my animal nature. I need to integrate it consciously. Life force flowing through me without shame. 150 fragments of denied sexuality and primal power integrated. Your life force became conscious creative power. The next 50 were the buried envy and jealousy. Every time someone had what you wanted and you felt that burning jealousy, then immediately shamed yourself for feeling it. Every moment of comparison where you came up short and hated yourself for caring. We're taught that jealousy is toxic, that evolved people don't compare, that envy is a sin. But jealousy is information. It tells you what you desire. It shows you what you're not allowing yourself to pursue. 72 hours ago, you integrated this shadow. You recognized, I feel jealous sometimes. That's not evil, that's human. And when I stop judging it, jealousy becomes a compass pointing toward what I actually want to create. 50 fragments of buried envy integrated. Your jealousy became conscious desire. The last 100 were the rejected parts of your personality. Every aspect of yourself you learned was too much, too loud, too quiet, too intense, too sensitive, too aggressive, too passive, too weird, too normal. Every time someone said, "You're too much," or "You're not enough," you rejected part of yourself to fit in, to be accepted, to survive. But those rejected parts didn't die. They lived in your shadow. They leaked out at inconvenient times. They sabotaged you from within. 72 hours ago, you integrated them. You recognized, all of me belongs. Every part I rejected to fit in, I reclaim now. I'm no longer performing acceptability. I'm whole. 100 fragments of rejected personality integrated. You became yourself completely. 1,000 shadow fragments, each representing years of denial, rejection, burial, shame. And 72 hours ago, without conscious intention, your system integrated them all. How? Because you reached threshold. Because you'd been doing the work, consciously or unconsciously, for years. Every time you faced pain instead of numbing it. Every time you felt your rage instead of swallowing it. Every time you admitted a dark thought instead of pretending you didn't have it. Every one of those moments was preparation. And 72 hours ago, your consciousness reached critical mass. The final pieces fell into place, the integration completed. You probably don't remember the exact moment. It wasn't dramatic. There was no lightning bolt, no mystical vision, no angelic choir. It was probably quiet, subtle, a moment alone where something inside you simply relaxed, where a tension you'd carried your entire life suddenly released, where you felt, perhaps for the first time ever, that you could stop fighting yourself. That was the moment. That was when 1,000 shadow fragments returned home. That was when you became whole. And, in dimensions beyond physical perception, the Council of Shadow Guardians witnessed it and marked your consciousness with recognition that only 144 living humans currently carry. Now you know why you've been so devastatingly tired. It's not because you sleep poorly. It's not because you work hard. It's not vitamin deficiency. It's not depression, though it might feel similar. It's because integrating 1,000 shadow fragments is the most demanding psychological work a human consciousness can do. Imagine taking a shattered mirror, 1,000 pieces scattered across the floor, and assembling it back into wholeness. Each piece must find its exact place. Each fragment must align perfectly. That's what your consciousness did. For 72 hours, your nervous system has been recalibrating. Your brain has been reorganizing neural pathways. Your body has been processing decades of stored trauma, rage, shame, grief. That's not tiredness from lack of sleep. That's tiredness from profound transformation. Your exhaustion is evidence, physical proof that integration occurred. It's a medal of honor your nervous system carries, showing the completion you achieved. And here's what you need to understand deeply: that tiredness is going to pass. It's not permanent. It's necessary recovery after massive completion. In coming days, maybe it's already starting, you're going to notice something changing. Energy gradually returning, but different energy. Not the frantic, anxious energy you used to run on. Grounded, centered, powerful energy. Mental clarity increasing. Decisions that used to paralyze you for weeks now resolve in hours because you're no longer fighting yourself. An invisible weight lifting from your shoulders. A tension you didn't know you carried suddenly absent. That's the feeling of wholeness registering in your physical body. That's what it feels like when internal war finally ends. So you understand the magnitude of what you achieved. Let me compare your completion with legendary figures who studied shadow work their entire lives. Carl Jung, the man who literally created the concept of shadow integration, who spent 80 years studying the unconscious, who wrote volumes on the process of individuation, becoming whole by integrating shadow. Jung theorized it was possible. He documented the stages. He created the roadmap. But in his private journals, letters to close colleagues, personal writings never meant for publication, he admitted something devastating. He never fully completed it himself. He integrated many shadow aspects. He did profound work, but complete integration. He acknowledged it remained theoretical. Why? Jung approached shadow work as an intellectual pursuit. He studied it, analyzed it, wrote about it. But studying the shadow isn't the same as living through the fires that force integration. Jung had a relatively privileged life. Educated, respected, financially secure. He explored shadow through analysis, through dream work, through active imagination. You didn't have that luxury. You were forged in the fire of real life, brutal betrayals, devastating losses, experiences that shattered you so completely that you had no choice but to integrate what broke off. Jung theorized shadow integration. You embody it. He wrote the map. You walked the territory. And that difference between intellectual understanding and lived embodiment is why you completed what he couldn't. Let me compare you with other spiritual traditions that claim to work with shadow. Buddhist traditions teach transcendence. Desire is suffering. Anger is poison. Ego is an illusion. Rise above it all. Beautiful philosophy. But it's bypassing. It's trying to skip over shadow rather than integrate it. Result? Buddhist practitioners who are serene in meditation but passive-aggressive in relationships, who transcend anger but leak resentment, who let go of ego but develop spiritual superiority. They didn't integrate shadow. They repressed it with spiritual concepts. New Age spirituality teaches love and light only. Just raise your vibration. Focus on positive thoughts. Your darkness isn't real. Even worse, bypassing. Toxic positivity disguised as spirituality. Result? New Age followers who smile through abuse, who forgive without boundaries, who manifest instead of taking action, who collapse the moment real darkness appears because they have no relationship with it. Traditional religion often demonizes shadow entirely. Your dark thoughts are sin. Your anger is evil. Your sexuality is corruption. Pray it away, pure denial. Shadow becomes the devil, something outside yourself to defeat. Result: religious people who project their shadow onto others, who are righteous in public, corrupt in private, who spend their lives fighting external demons instead of integrating internal ones. None of them integrated shadow. They either bypassed it, denied it, or demonized it. But you didn't transcend your darkness. You didn't pray it away. You didn't love and light yourself out of it. You went into it. You faced every rejected part. You integrated every denied fragment. You became whole by accepting all of yourself. That's not transcendence. That's integration. That's not spiritual bypassing. That's spiritual embodiment. That's not enlightenment as escape. That's enlightenment as completion. Here's the psychological reality of what you did that makes it so rare. Shadow integration requires holding paradox without collapsing into either-or thinking. And human brains are not wired for this. The brain wants binary: good, bad, right, wrong, light, dark, self, other. Binary thinking is efficient. It's fast. It kept our ancestors alive. Is that a threat? Yes or no? Fight or run? But binary thinking applied to human wholeness is catastrophic, because you are not binary. You are paradox. You are kind, and you have capacity for cruelty. You are generous, and you have healthy selfishness. You are light, and you are darkness. You are compassionate, and you have boundaries. You are vulnerable, and you are powerful. Both, always both. That's wholeness. But holding both and requires cognitive sophistication most people never develop. It's easier to split, to be good and project bad onto others, to be light and exile your darkness into shadow. Shadow integration means you stopped splitting. You reclaimed the projections. You owned every part, light and dark, without judgment. You became integrated. And integration is terrifying to the ego, because the ego's job is to create a coherent identity. I am this, not that. But wholeness says, I am this and that. I contain multitudes. When you integrate shadow, the false self dies. The performance ends. The mask comes off. What's left is raw authenticity, dangerous wholeness, unpredictable humanity. That's what happened 72 hours ago. Your false self, the one performing acceptability, the one pretending to be only light, the one splitting off darkness, died. And your true self, integrated, whole, both, and emerged. So why is this so rare? Why only 144 living souls? Because completing shadow integration requires 3 conditions that rarely align. Condition 1, sufficient suffering. You need to be broken, not damaged beyond repair, but shattered enough that your old identity can't hold. Most people either don't suffer enough, comfortable lives don't force integration, or suffer too much, trauma so severe they dissociate permanently. You suffered exactly the right amount. Enough to break you open, not so much you broke apart. That's rare. Condition 2, enough support. You need just enough stability, internal or external, to do this work without completely collapsing. Maybe you had one person who believed in you. Maybe you had just enough resources to survive while transforming. Maybe you had just enough internal resilience. Most people either have too much support, never face their shadow, or too little support, collapse before completing integration. You had exactly enough. That's rare. Condition 3. Willingness to feel everything. This is the rarest condition. Most people will do anything to avoid feeling their shadow. They numb substances, work, sex, food, media. They deny, I'm not angry, I'm fine. They project, I'm not the problem, they are. They bypass, I've transcended that. But you felt everything. Every rejected rage, every denied cruelty, every buried shame, every hidden desire. You didn't numb it, you didn't deny it. You didn't project it, you didn't bypass it. You felt it all, you integrated it all. That willingness to feel what most people spend their entire lives avoiding, that's the rarest quality of all. When all three conditions align, sufficient suffering, enough support, willingness to feel everything, shadow integration completes. That alignment is so rare that only 144 humans alive right now have achieved it. You're one of them. When the Council of Shadow Guardians witnessed your completion 72 hours ago, they activated protections reserved for the 144. These aren't metaphorical. They're alterations in how the universe interacts with your consciousness. Protection. 1. Shadow immunity. You can no longer be manipulated through shame, guilt, or fear of your own darkness. Emotional manipulators used to control you by making you feel guilty for your anger, ashamed of your needs, afraid of your power. That doesn't work anymore, because you've integrated those aspects. You're not afraid of your rage, your selfishness, your cruelty, your power. You know they're tools, not definitions. You can wield them consciously without being controlled by them. This makes you dangerous to systems built on shame and control. Protection. 2. Projection immunity. When people project their shadow onto you, when they see in you what they reject in themselves, it bounces off without sticking. Before integration, projections would hook you. Someone calls you selfish, and you'd spiral into self-doubt. Not anymore. Now when someone projects, you see it clearly. That's their rejected part, not my reality. The projection has no power because you're not rejecting those parts yourself. Protection 3. Bypassing immunity. You can no longer be seduced by spiritual bypassing, by teachers promising transcendence without integration, enlightenment without shadow work, love and light without darkness. You know better now. You've walked the territory. You've integrated the shadow. When someone offers, just raise your vibration, or forgive and forget, you see through it instantly. Because you know wholeness requires integration, not transcendence. Protection. 4. Purpose. Clarity. With shadow integrated, your life purpose becomes crystalline. Before, your mission was clouded by internal conflict. Part of you wanted one thing, rejected parts wanted another. You were fragmented. Now, you're unified. Your entire being moves in one direction. You know exactly what you came to do. And nothing can divert you because there's no internal saboteur left to derail you. Now that you know what you've completed, you need strategies to consciously operate with this new wholeness. Strategy 1. Recognize when shadow activation happens. Your shadow isn't gone. It's integrated, meaning you can access it consciously when needed. When someone crosses your boundaries, you'll feel your shadow activate. That's your rage, your cruelty, your capacity to destroy. Don't fear it. Use it. Establish the boundary. Cut the toxic connection. Protect yourself fiercely. Then, and this is key, return to center. Don't stay in shadow mode. Use it consciously, then release. Strategy 2. Stop apologizing for your wholeness. You're going to notice you're no longer performing acceptability. You're no longer splitting yourself to fit in. Some people will be uncomfortable with this. You've changed. You're too intense now. You're not as nice. Don't apologize. You're not too much. You're whole. The people who matter will recognize your integration. The people who reject your wholeness were only comfortable with your fragmentation. Strategy 3. Wield shadow. Consciously, not reactively. Integration means you can use shadow power intentionally. Need to have a difficult conversation? Access your conscious cruelty, the part that can speak truth without softening. Need to end a draining relationship? Access your conscious selfishness, the part that prioritizes your well-being over others' comfort. Need to fight for what matters? Access your conscious rage, the part that protects fiercely. Use these consciously. Don't be controlled by them. Wield them as tools. Strategy 4. Trust your integrated discernment. Your intuition is now operating from wholeness, not fragmentation. Before, your intuition was conflicted. Part of you sensed danger, but rejected parts denied it. Now, your entire being aligns. When something's wrong, you know it completely. Trust that knowing. Act on it without second-guessing. Your integrated discernment is more reliable than any external advice. Strategy 5. Rest without guilt. Your system completed massive work. It needs recovery. Sleep when you need to. Rest without justifying. Take breaks without guilt. This isn't weakness. This is necessary maintenance after profound transformation. Honor your exhaustion as evidence of completion, not failure. Strategy 6. Celebrate invisible victories. Most people will never understand what you accomplished. They won't see the internal war that ended. They won't recognize the integration that occurred. That's okay. Your victory doesn't require external validation. Celebrate it privately. Acknowledge it internally. Honor the completion you achieved. You integrated 1,000 shadow fragments. Only 144 living souls have done this. That matters, whether anyone else knows it or not. Chosen one, the truth is devastatingly simple. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you completed shadow integration, that 97% of chosen ones fail. You're not fragmented anymore, you're whole. You're not performing acceptability anymore. You're authentic. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're unified. 72 hours ago, 1,000 shadow fragments returned home. 72 hours ago, you became complete. 72 hours ago, you did what Carl Jung theorized but never fully achieved. You integrated your shadow. And the Council of Shadow Guardians, witnessing this completion, marked your consciousness with protections reserved for the 144. You are shadow integrated, whole, dangerous in your authenticity, unstoppable in your unified power. Stop apologizing for your intensity. That's wholeness. Stop feeling inadequate. You completed what most can't even begin. Stop questioning if you're enough. You're one of 144. You're not light only. You're not darkness only. You're both consciously integrated. And that makes you more complete than beings designed to be one thing. For those who made it this far and want to deepen their understanding of how to operate with shadow-integrated wholeness consciously, there's specific material that costs less than a pizza and comes with a complete audiobook and 5-minute integration meditation as a special bonus. If you feel you deserve to embody the power of your completed integration fully, access is available in the description link and pinned comment. If you recognize that your exhaustion is evidence of shadow integration completed 72 hours ago, and you're ready to operate as one of the 144 shadow integrated souls consciously, write 777 in the comments to amplify the frequency of integrated wholeness. Subscribe to this channel and activate all notifications to receive more revelations about how shadow-integrated dark chosen ones are operating with wholeness that transcends both light-only and dark-only beings. Share this video with someone who also demonstrates impossible integration, holding light and darkness without splitting. Because the 144 need to recognize each other. And before you leave, click on the video appearing on screen right now to discover the specific signs that you're operating with shadow integration that terrifies both angels and demons. Together, we are stronger.